Hi, everybody. I'm here with my Week 8 NFL picks, and I also am going to throw in a bet I like for the World Series, which starts tonight as I'm recording this. So I will do a quick recap of last week. It was not a great week for me. The Chase Brown anytime touchdown prop bet from Thursday Night Football did not hit. Chase Brown had a pretty good night, but he could not find the end zone. I did hit the under in Browns Dolphins. It was not exactly how I expected that game to go, with the Browns blowing out the Dolphins. I think it was 31-6 as the final, but we still got under 40.5, no problem. I think by close time, by kickoff I should say, the total was somewhere, I want to say it was like 34.5. One place I looked, so getting it at 40.5 was a really good price. And then I lost the Texans bet. They lost to the Seahawks, despite having a couple possessions where they got, I think, inside the 5-yard line and were unable to convert it to a touchdown. So they were not able to cover that 3-point spread. So I'm not going to talk too much about my futures bets today, really, because there's not a whole lot new with any of them. So I'm going to skip over that and just jump right into what I like for this week. Like I said, I have a World Series bet that I'll do at the end, but I'm going to continue my trend of 2 bets on the spread total. I think they're both spread bets this week. And then I'll do a player prop for one of the primetime games. So, a couple weeks ago, I won betting on a big favorite in the first half. It was the Packers over the Bengals. There was about a 14-point spread, and I bet on them to cover 7.5 in the first half, and they did. And there's a similar line on the board this week. The Colts are favored by around 14.5 or 14, depending on where you look, over the Titans. And I like them to cover the first half in this one, and it's at 8.5 right now. So Colts minus 8.5 first half is my first bet. The Titans are really not a great team. They've just fired their coach, and sometimes the interim head coach bump helps teams in that first week, but it didn't help them last week against the Patriots. And I don't think it's going to be any different going into Indianapolis. I think the Colts are going to score early and often. And I would lean the Colts to cover the 14 as well. But like I said before in this situation, these teams don't really have any incentive to cover a big spread like that. So is there a scenario where the Colts have a 21-point lead and then pull back a little and the Titans get some garbage time touchdown to cover 14 in the end? Yeah, I think that's on the table, but I feel like the Colts will get out to a hot start and have no problem covering the 8.5 in the first half. So I'm going to roll with this trend and lock that in as my first bet. My second bet is another bet on the spread. I like at the Carolina Panthers. The Bills are coming off their bye week. Obviously, that was my logic last week on the Texans, or a big part of my logic, and it didn't pan out. So maybe the bye week angle is a little overrated, but I just feel like the Bills are starting to feel the pressure a little. The Patriots are currently in the lead in the division, and Buffalo just hasn't looked that great in the last couple games it's played. So I think they're going to really come out of the bye week looking to punch the Panthers in the mouth, so to speak. And I think, the Panthers have looked good the last few weeks. They've won 3 in a row. But I think they could be getting a little too much love with this line. I just think it feels like a good spot for Buffalo to win by at least a touchdown. So I'm going to go with it. Bills -7 is my second bet. And my anytime touchdown scorer is for the Packers-Steelers game on Sunday night. It is a wide receiver. I'm going to bet a half unit on Matthew Golden of the Packers to get a touchdown at +230. Matthew Golden is a rookie. He has sort of been the number 2 option to Romeo Dubes for most of the year. He has yet to get a touchdown, and it just feels like this could be the game that he finally finds the end zone. I don't know, I feel like at +230 it's pretty good value. I saw it at +200, +210, a few other places, so I think at a little better than 2-1 odds, betting on the number 2 receiver to get in for a touchdown is decent value. I always think about who's the defense going to try and take out of the game. And for the Packers, if you're trying to defend against the Packers offense, that's going to be Romeo Dubes. So it just might leave some opportunity for Matthew Golden to have a big night. And I'm going to roll with it. Half unit, Matthew Golden anytime, touchdown, scorer. And finally, my bet on the World Series. It's related to who will have the most home runs, and I'm going to go with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at +700. This is another price I saw a lot lower other places, so I think I'm getting a good deal at +700. Shohei Ohtani is the obvious choice, the obvious favorite at +200. But I think, after the huge game he had in the NLCS clincher, I have to think that these Toronto pitchers might be extra careful not to give him anything he can hit out of the park. Or, at least try to minimize pitches that he could crush. And obviously the Dodgers pitchers will be trying to do the same with Guerrero, but if it's between the two of them, I just think it's good value that Guerrero will end up with more home runs throughout the series than Ohtani. So at 7-1, I think it's worth a half unit play to try and win 3.5 units. Full disclosure, don't watch a ton of baseball. I'm not a huge, I'm not a devout fan during the regular season, but I've been tuning in for these playoffs and, looking forward to seeing what happens in this series. So we'll see. It'll be a little more fun to have some juice on it, regardless of what happens. So thank you as always to my watchers, listeners, subscribers, and commenters. I appreciate hearing from everybody and hearing how much you enjoy my channel, and that is what inspires me to keep doing it week after week. So hope everyone enjoys the games this weekend, and you will hear from me soon. Take care. Bye-bye.